Dramatics, welcome back. We're going through episode 8 of When the Phone Rings, and y'all, the twists just keep coming. So we need to get into it. But as always, there's going to be spoilers here, so watch on if you've already seen episode 8 or if you still just don't care. So we start off with Park Sun packing a suitcase he'll eventually bring to the hospital for Hong-gi-ju in the last episode. And he's rolling up the blanket to put in there. And he's going through her nightstand drawer for things for her. And doing so, he uncovers a worn picture of her and her siblings from that fateful day at the amusement park. And in that image, we're in front of the observation tower. An observation tower that our couple is now making memories in, with Hong-gi-ju coming clean with her being the caller, despite Park Sun already being fully aware of that, and him declaring his love for her and those kisses. So they're back at their apartment where Park Sun cooks for her and insists on her to eat it slowly, which she enjoys. Hong-gi-ju asks him that she's been wondering for a while, but why is he such a good cook? He says cooking is about sincerity, but honestly, as long as the kimchi's good, then this dish is a success. He also wishes for them to eat more often at the house so it'll feel more like home instead of jail. And she's like, you just feel guilty. He declares that he doesn't. And Hong-gi-ju is like, oh? So the 3 years we lived together were normal? With nothing but cold vibes in this house? Where we didn't speak or make eye contact? Didn't eat or sleep together? Oops. She said too much. But then he says, do you want that? And she has a piece of rice on the corner of her mouth and he snags it. He says, if you hated sleeping in separate rooms, you should have just told me. But she backtracked with, nuh-uh, that's not what I'm saying. But then he confesses something, that to him, the house was always warm. It was warm when he drove home and he saw the lights in the window. It made him feel good knowing she was there. Like he said back in episode 4 during the anniversary party, and now that whenever he looked at her, all the world and noise in it became quiet and peaceful. She says that he could have told her that sooner. And yes, he should have. He asks, remember what I told you? To not have any feelings for me? And she's like, yeah, how could I forget? You didn't have to be so harsh. He confesses that he was scared, and that if he didn't draw the line like that, then he was scared that he'd end up giving her his heart, and that it would give him a false sense of security that everything would be okay, and that he'd give up and cave in. Hong-gi-ju remembers him mentioning that she wasn't a part of his plan, and she asks him about this. This he's not so forthcoming about, and he says that he'll tell her when that time comes. But she confesses that she also has something to tell him. I am so proud of her because this is what I wanted her to do in the last episode. She does show him the text that came from the kidnapper from the last episode about him coming to the hospital to take the phone. Park Sun is like, you can relax. Don't worry about this anymore. I'll track him down soon. And about the modded phone, he says, only you and I know about it. It's not going to the police. There's no need for it to. And she says, are you worried it will be revealed that I'm involved? If you are, I'm prepared for it. Let's just reveal everything. And he's like, nah, I'm just going to take care of things one by one. Stand down. Don't think about doing anything. And for the time being, don't speak in front of anyone but me. The accomplice seems to be someone close to us. Until we figure out who it is, we must be careful, which Hong-gi-ju does agree to. And he also mentions how he's sad about the calls ending and that they were fun. That the fiery Hong-gi-ju shows up when she's 406. And wait, where's that lingerie again? And he gets up like he's about to head to her room. Like, what in the role play, Mr. Park Sun? Like, you need to slow your roll. She stops him, putting an arm around his waist, which he takes her other arm to place around him. And he asks why. She says, it's just hard to believe that you accepted me as I am and forgave me. He turns to hug her, but he is thinking to himself if she was willing to do the same if she knew all about him. And the answer, dude, yes. Just tell her. But would he tell her now? No, because it wouldn't be this drama if he did. We shift to the kidnapper, and he looks like he got some things lit with some soju, sitting in front of a fire when he gets a message from the puppet master, who asks him if he has gotten that phone back, and the kidnapper tells him no. But when we did not see him in episode 7 showing up to the hospital, in this flashback, we actually see that he does. But it is swarming with cops outside. And so he goes and masks up again, and before he can get out the car, Park Sun arrives at the hospital. And also at the same time, there is a delivery truck that comes along and obscures his view but it's delivering funeral wreaths, so he gets a bright idea. So with these wreaths, it is the perfect cover for him to get inside the hospital. So he manages to get onto the elevator with Park Sun, pretending to be a delivery man, along with an older gentleman who I believe is the driver and the florist for these wreaths. So Park Sun asks the older man what floor he needs, and the gentleman tells him, and then the gentleman recognizes him. He asks him if he's the spokesperson, and our bae confirms that he is. The man says that it's an honor to meet him, and he saw what all has been happening with him on the news. Is he okay? And he comments on how the world is so chaotic that all sorts of crazy people are trying to do things like that. Oh, you mean like the original Park Sun that's also sharing the elevator with y'all and is partially responsible for the reason why our boy has to be in the hospital in the first place and release a statement about it? Yeah, that kind of crazy. And the camera pans to the kidnapper while Park Sun thanks the kind man for his concern. And you can see the absolute loathing he has for the man who took his place. I mean, the man is starting to twitch as he's staring at our Park Sun. His gaze journeying all the way down to his wedding ring. Then we hear a voiceover, which I originally thought he was crazy enough to address our boy in person, but no, he's addressing the puppet master in a voiceover, and I think a little bit to himself sometimes too, until the scene actually returns back to him and his lone soju party. But he says, "Did you know Park Sun smells good? What I want to get back isn't that stupid phone. I'm going to take back all of it, even the scent coming from him." Because for him, this is the life he was supposed to have anyway. The life, the clothes, the scent, possibly even the girl. The thing about this, I don't even know if for sure if him taking everything belonging to Park Sun also includes his marriage. But I think it's interesting when he scanned Park Sun, it was the length of him down to that wedding ring. That's where it stopped. Also, the kidnapper has said from episode 3 that he does like her. You know, despite him choking her out and slashing her throat in episode 1, a minor oversight, right? But the kidnapper seemed displeased about her being pushed off the overlook. Even denied it was him who did it in the text to her in episode 7. So what I'm thinking is that maybe, just go along with me for this. With him being crazy and very possessive, I wonder if he's going to pull the fact that since he's the real Park Sun, she's legally married to him. And he probably feels it's just one more thing this imposter has that he's determined to take back. That's just a hypothetical. I don't know if he even has weight, but that's just what I'm thinking. So, Park Sun's parents are watching the news report of the kidnapper. Park Sr. is casually drinking, but his eyes keep training on his wife, who has a visceral reaction to the report because they both know who this man is. Park Sun's assistant comes to let them know that HBC has reached out to confirm if the interview will proceed as scheduled. Park Sr. is like, cancel it. But Park Sun's mother is like, go ahead and tell him that we'll do it before she leaves the room. And Park Sr. whispers to his man, probably to try and keep an eye on her to make sure she doesn't do anything rash, but we'll see. So it's the next morning and we see Hong Hee-ju, who's stirring awake but is by herself. Boo for her sleeping alone, but baby steps for our couple. Have to have a little patience here. So she notices that it's almost noon. She walks into the living room, no husband. She goes into his bedroom, no husband. She calls him and gets this weird voice recording of, "The number you have dialed doesn't exist. Please check the number and try again." And she dials again and again, and with tears streaming down her face, she can't reach him and that he's gone practically from her life forever. But she then wakes up for real. It was just a dream, but Hong Hee-ju is so affected by it. But she gets up and goes to his room, hesitant to check on him, but finds that he is asleep soundly in his bed. She kneels beside the bed to look at him, stroking his hair and face, which he reacts to, and soon wakes up himself. She scrambles away, but Park Sun catches her by the arm to bring her back to lie down beside him, covering them both up with the covers. He asks if she slept well. She nods. "Are you going to work?" He says nope. He said he won't move an inch today. He took the day off considering for the last 3 years he worked non-stop, even holidays and weekends. And it makes me wonder if he worked deliberately like that to avoid her. He probably had done that because he didn't want to get close to her, and for some reason I guess didn't want to feed into the fears of eventually losing her. I'm like, dude, you pretty much did the opposite. You almost lost her anyway from your neglect, but here we are. So Hong Hee-ju asks, well, what are you going to do today? And Park Sun wants to know if there's anything she wants to do. And she says, there is. things that she had never imagined they could do together. So we get a few different scenarios that she had imagined while she was out living her life of what it would have been like if they were just a regular couple just enjoying life and each other, like having a picnic in the park or walking hand in hand with their dog on the trail, which, side note here, I think it's so sweet they use Yeon Suk's own dog here, Rita, and that man absolutely adores that dog, like loves her. So it's so cute and so cool that they were able to utilize her for this scene. Anyway, Hong Hee-ju says that even despite wanting the divorce and to escape their house every day, she still imagined a life that could have been. Park Sun asks her when did she start imagining that, and she says probably when they were on the side of the road after the police officers had let her out at the end of episode 3, and this is after the whole kidnapper and her dad incident, and Park Sun comes and declares aloud that she's his wife, and he's like, oh, that's when you fell for me. And she's like, fell for you? Me? Well, it's just that I'd never thought you'd do something like that. And he confesses that him falling for her happened way before then. And she prompts him on when did you do so? And he doesn't say, instead draws her closer to him. Their peace, though, is interrupted by Kang Young-woo calling. He apologizes for disturbing Park Sun on his day off, but says that he needs to come into the office right away. So Park Senior and his PR dude pull up to a whole host of reporters waiting outside, I believe, his office building. And when he gets out of his car, they pounce on him. Why is Park Sun being threatened? Who do you think the mastermind is behind them? Park Sun's reporter friend is like, look, his statement was completely different from your claims. Care to comment on that? Park Senior is like, why do you think that is? He clearly drew a line to avoid causing any trouble to his father's future. He didn't want to make a fuss over a political issue. But the reporter is a little bit more adamant. He's like, do you still think that those trying to harm you are the ones who attacked the spokesperson? But they get interrupted by some bereavement wreaths being brought alongside the crowd. What do they say on them? I know what Park Sun did last summer. No, I'm just kidding, but I know what Park Sun did. So the man in question comes into the office, but there's no one there. That is, until Kang Young-woo leaps out as a surprise. All his colleagues have supportive signs like, we're in this together and this too shall pass. And Kang Young-woo is like, after thinking about how to offer our support and comfort during this time, we prepared this. This made me so mad, y'all. So mad. This man was trying to do a couple things with his wife, and y'all had the absolute gall, especially Kang Young-woo, it's mostly him, to call this man to the office on his day off. Y'all want to show support? Prepare a card, but show him that card tomorrow. I'm glad I'm not the only one who got flustered, because Park Sun asked Kang Young-woo, didn't you ask me to hurry to the office for this? When I took my first day off in 3 years, which was what I was saying. And Kang was like, yeah, you did, but all we can do is imagine how difficult it must have felt. The other colleagues were warding off like they didn't have any part of this idea, and I believe them. I believe it's 100% Kang Young-woo's brainchild, and I'm just like, brainchild tomorrow. And Kang was like, well, we did it, and since you're already here anyway, let's just go ahead and take a photo so we can commemorate this. And Park Sun is just like, no. Anyway, where is Park Do-jae? Where is he? Well, the man of the hour comes running in, getting Park Sun's attention. Well, luckily, Park Sun's trip to the office isn't completely without merit. Park Do-jae does inform him that he has, quote-unquote, found him, meaning the kidnapper, and that the reverse tracking is complete. He hands Park Sun the location, asking if it rings a bell. Park Sun doesn't answer, walking past the man. Park Do-jae asks if he's gonna go right now, and if so, he'll go with him. But Park Sun insists on going alone and to not tell the police, which is a bad idea. Like, my dude, he blew up your office. He found and threatened your wife. He, as far as you know, pushed her off the overlook. And you're gonna go in there armed with what, your wits? Are you serious? Try and go and have a rational chat with someone who's already angry and crazy at you in particular. Stupid choice. So back at the Nuri Dream Center, the director is with the kids eating their lunch with Ji Sang-woo grilling. She says that they're still eating on the hall that he brought before, but appreciates him for doing so. And she's like, speaking of which, did you ever find out any more about what you asked me about last time? Ji Sang-woo says no. He's been asking his peer to try and find that twin brother, but no dice. Then the director pivots, asking about the newscaster, Na Yuri, who came with Ji Sang-woo before. And he says she's probably working. The director, she's not your girlfriend? Ji Sang-woo dismisses that, saying that she's just a colleague, but dang it, I want them to be more than colleagues. The director brings up his first love, and that she was nothing like her, right? And he's like, my first love? She's like, yeah. Her name is Hong Hee-ju, and he's a little dumbfounded that she remembers and compliments her on her great memory. And the director mentions on how long it's been since Hong Hee-ju had came to the center, because she used to regularly come to volunteer for years, even teaching the kids how to sign, but she hasn't seen her in such a long time, and so she's wondering how she's doing. Well, Hong Hee-ju is recovering at home, but is bothered with her witch of a mother visiting. Apparently, Chairman Hung said to bring her home now to their house, but her mother insists on her to hold out. As soon as Hong Hee-ju leaves his house, she can't come back to it. But the witch says, I know who the culprit is of all of this. Who else would threaten Park Sun and talk about your marriage? Hong Ina is her answer. And how she can tell Hong Ina is doing all this just to break them up, obviously regretting her choice in not marrying Park Sun when she had the chance. After all, the election is coming up, and with everything going so well, Hong Ina is trying to wreck it. This woman is so short-sighted, I swear. Anyway, when Hong Hee-ju didn't say anything, the witch is like, hey, did you know she was back? What did she say? Does she want everything back? You told her no, right? Regardless, don't see her again. Don't listen to anything she says, got it? When Hong Hee-ju gets a notification on her phone, she picks it up and reads it. Funny though, she would rather deal with messages from a crazy kidnapper than listening to her insufferable mother, which is like the literal definition of picking the bear. But I get it. Said kidnapper texts her saying, sis, remember what I said before? You don't know anything about Park Sun. Don't you want to know? All the while, the witch leans in saying how Hong Hee-ju can't even eat what's being hand-fed to her, and essentially accuses Hong Hee-ju of taking after her father instead of her. You know, not being as calculating and manipulative and all that stuff like her mother, but is like more tender-hearted like her father. And it seems like she might be resentful of her ex, but the witch is so resentful of so many things. Like I said, short-sighted as F. But the witch warns Hong Hee-ju if she doesn't get it together, Hong Hee-ju will end up like her father. But the witch says one of the best things she's ever had, that she's leaving. Good, and don't come back. Even for the rest of the series, please don't come back unless I hear about that white truck of doom coming for you. But Hong Hee-ju doesn't look up or acknowledge her going, watching as a file loads that we don't get to see yet. What we do get to see in the next scene is Park Sun's car switching lanes and flooring it. While he's driving, his reporter friend calls him. He tells Park Sun that this was just posted and take a look at what he sent, which are the bereavement wreaths. He asks Park Sun if he knows who the culprit is. What's wrong with this dude? What kind of grudge does he have against Park Sun? And our man says he's on his way to find that out for himself. So in the meantime, Hong Hee-ju ends up watching the video. Afterwards, she thinks about calling Park Sun, but she hesitates. Then she gets a text from Ji Sang-woo. He asks how she's doing, and we get back to Ji Sang-woo at the Nuri Dream Center, and we see from his chat log that he's got a one-sided conversation going on for the last few days since Hong Hee-ju had her unfortunate fall. But he asks if she's okay, he can't reach her, so he's worried about her, and she responds at last, saying that it's been a while and if he can meet with her right now. So while she's on the way there, we get to this next scene with Park Sr. and Chairman Hung, with speculation of if Park Sun's blackmail case will affect Park Sr.'s chances for the presidency, so they're sweating bullets over what this could mean. Chairman Hung asks Park Sr. how he's going to handle this and that there's only so much he can personally put a stop to. Park Sr. flips it back, says that it's not him or his son's responsibility to fix it, but Chairman Hung, that's his job. He's the one who expunges a lot of that scandal from Park Sr.'s life, his cheating scandals and Lord knows what else tied to their family. And he's also just like, well, didn't all this happen because of your daughters anyway? Pretty much like, this is your mess to clean up regardless. Chairman Hung is like, look, what's done is done. But while you're bringing up old stuff, then let me ask you something. Your family's Achilles heel. Are you sure it was taken care of by your father? Park Sr.? Oh, he's getting mighty quiet on the other side of that table. And so Chairman Hung is like, oh, it wasn't. I'm letting you know right now. If that thing shows up and hinders any of this, I'll chop it into tiny pieces from head to tail myself and neatly scatter them in your yard. So I'm going to put you on notice to either look forward to it or prepare for it. And I'm like, dang, it is so brutal. Like, he came out mob boss, and I was kind of thrilled by it. But we already know as the audience that this weakness of the family is the crazy Park-sun coming back into notice and really vengeance and prominence. And Chairman Hung isn't about to let this man mess with his bankroll or his status. And I had him pinged originally as being a pushover, but this dude is not. He can be ruthless when he needs to be in name of his family and his own interests. And when he was talking about chopping things up from head to tail, it reminds me a lot of the kidnapper when he was a kid and he did that to that unfortunate cat. That's what it reminded me of. Like, it's very eerie, but in this way, he's like, I'm going to treat him just like that cat and chop him up. Like, I'm like, you're not going to mess with my money. You are not going to do that. So Chairman Hung gets up from the table to leave, but Park-sun is like, you need to pay me what you owe me. And practically, this debt is 3 years old. And he's talking about Hung-ina. So this fool is still wanting Park-sun to make good on what he was supposed to do and marry Hung-ina. Park-sun will rather leave this family in the dust with Hong Hee-ju in tow than to bow down to that. Not when he's fought so much to keep her and just now expressed how much he loved her. Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. So Hong Hee-ju meets Ji Sang-woo at the Nuri Dream Center, where he says that he's glad nothing happened. So many incidents happened after she started working there that he felt a bit troubled. She signs thanking him for his concern. So he gets into it, wondering what brought her there to meet with him. She says that the case he's investigating for the program he's appearing on, wasn't it a case about missing orphans? He confirms that's correct. She wishes to know more about it, but we don't get to hear about it yet. But Park-sun arrives at the address he was given, the address to the old villa house that the young kidnapper lived at. Now, it seems like this is a house Park-sun was familiar about. It seemed like he was familiar with the address when he got it from Park Do-jae. So there's no telling how long he has been in this house. Like, if he had been around it, he's seen it a couple times, or he's been there several. We don't know. And especially with the overlap of when the kidnapper had stayed there versus when he eventually became the Park's son, there's no telling how much he does know about this property. But the gate when he arrives is already unlocked, so he directly goes and parks beside the house, and he goes inside and he looks around, but he eventually was trying to go to that door that led down to the basement where the kidnapper had stayed all those years ago. Then he hears something coming from upstairs, and he goes up to see what is playing in the background. It's a video playing from a projector. And it's the same video that the kidnapper sent to Hong Hee-ju, but it then abruptly ends. And then you see the words appear typed on the screen. You did it. You're the killer. Park-sun. Then you hear someone faintly whistling a tune, the same tune that the kidnapper often likes to whistle before the video plays again. And I think the kidnapper had particularly whistled that tune when he had wheeled Hong Hee-ju's father away in episode 3. So after you hear the whistle, the video plays again. Park-sun sees words scrolling on the screen about a missing orphan case and to contact if anybody knows anything. But now things are getting a lot more complicated because at this very moment, Ji Sang-woo and Hong Hee-ju pull up, but not beyond the open gate. So from where they stop, they can't see Park-sun's car. But Ji Sang-woo does make a note about the gate being open because it wasn't open when him and Na-yuri came before. They had to sneak through the gate. So Ji Sang-woo explains that this is where the orphan kids went in, but they never came out. Hong Hee-ju asks if there's anyone who lives there now, and he says he doesn't think so. But he gets back to the reason why she asked about the case in the first place. He wonders if she knows anything about it, and Hong Hee-ju shakes her head. And Ji Sang-woo is like, well, you asked about it, and the spokesperson did a while back. You both seem highly interested, but it's too late now. But he insists on them coming back during the daytime. At the same time, though, because you know this is going to happen, Park-sun walks out and he's seeing Ji Sang-woo pull out, but he's able to spot his wife in the passenger seat. So, as soon as they leave, Hong Hee-ju gets a call. From who? Oh, you already know, it's from Park-sun. Ji Sang-woo asks if there's someone calling her, and he insists on her to take it as she puts her phone back into her purse. Because of course, I don't think he knows that she's married at all, let alone to who she's married to. But she signs, how can I take it? You know, deaf and all. And he's like, I guess there's someone who knows besides me. And she's like, no, what? Ji Sang-woo knows that Hong Gi-joo can speak. Shocker. And I mean that legitimately. This shocked me that he knew that. And think about this, how does this man know? If I had my guesses of right now, he might have caught her sleeping in college or overheard it at some point. Maybe when she was in the bathroom in episode 2 when they first meet, maybe he overheard her speaking about like, oh, what's that? And then she came out. Maybe that's when he realized that she can speak. Who knows? We'll probably find out in the next couple of episodes on how he does know she can speak. But also, this scene is already intense with the background music and the way Ji Sang-woo is looking at her for a long while. And I mean a long time. See, I've already had issues with this man taking his eyes off the road when he was in the car with Nayuri episodes ago. But this, he has his eyes off the road for 5+ seconds while a car is behind them honking at them like crazy with flashing headlights. We already know who it is. It's Park Sun, of course. And our dude is pissed off. When he can't get a hold of her, he keeps laying on the horn. Then he comes up beside them, looking at them deliberately as he's honking. Then he pulls ahead of them and cuts them off, but before he's able to do so, he comes across an intersection where a car is about to enter it. So he has to swerve around the car to avoid hitting it. But now he's in front of them. And so now he slams on the brakes when he's a good distance before them, and they jam on theirs. Ji Sang-woo asks if he's crazy. Over her, always. Park Sun gets out the car, looking briefly at Ji Sang-woo before he moves towards the passenger side. Hong Gi-joo unbuckles her seatbelt and is about to open the door when Ji Sang-woo tells her not to get out. Park Sun tries to open the door, but it's locked. He demands for it to be open, but Ji Sang-woo tells her not to and that they have no idea why he's acting like this. Oh, she knows, and she does it anyway. Ji Sang-woo comes up to them, grabbing a hold of Park Sun's arm, and Park Sun is already holding on to Hong Gi-joo. Ji Sang-woo asks what Park Sun is doing, but Park Sun tells Ji Sang-woo to simply let go. After putting his wife in the car, Park Sun turns back to Ji Sang-woo. He says, I'm warning you, don't ever come near Hong Gi-joo again. Ji Sang-woo is like, who are you to say that? What exactly is your relationship to her? Park Sun is like, you go first. How much do you know about the Sunil Child Care Center incident? Have you found the culprit? Before Ji Sang-woo could fully answer him, Park Sun says there would be an investigation if they had. So again, do you know who the culprit is? Are you seeking revenge? I don't know if I'm having reasonable doubts about you or if it's just a misunderstanding, but stop here. Stop digging into this case. Ji Sang-woo asks, why do you care so much about it? What does it have to do with you? So Park Sun steps all into Ji Sang-woo's space and he says, what bothers me isn't the case, it's you. From the moment you appeared, everything started popping off. Is that really a coincidence? And with that, Park Sun gets into the car and he drives away quickly after that. But my dude, you are giving this man more ammo to fire with. And he's going to want to dig even more into this, especially since you've been showing up a lot with Hong Gi-joo. Not to mention, you came from the exact direction they just drove from. Ji Sang-woo is going to find out something regarding Park Sun, his relationship with Hong Gi-joo, and his family ties. That's my prediction. As our babies drive home, Park Sun asks Hong Gi-joo, why did she go there? She shows him the video the kidnapper sent her, the same one he just saw on the projection screen back at the villa. With seeing that, he pulls off to the side of the road and he gets out of the car. And he sees the text messages that the kidnapper sent to her about not knowing anything about Park Sun. When she gets out of the car as well, he asks if she went to ask Ji Sang-woo about what the kidnapper sent. Hong Gi-joo said that she asked about the case itself. And he inquires on why she didn't just ask him, was she scared to? And she confirms she was. And he is so hurt at hearing that, and he wonders if she was scared and anxious that she might find out something shocking about him, because let's be real, that's the fear he's been contending with himself. But Hong Gi-joo says, I've been anxious and scared, wanting to run away so many times. I was afraid you'd find out I was 406, that you wouldn't forgive me, and that you would never want to see me again. I wanted to run away before you found out about everything. So I am scared and anxious that you might run away before I can find out your secret just like I wanted to. So I couldn't ask you because I know what it's like. And she continues with, that's not the only thing I'm scared of. Today, I felt more anxious ever since I woke up. And she's referring to the dream where she couldn't find him in the apartment and was scared that he had left her. And she says it's the type of dream that makes her break down in tears when she wakes up, feeling empty and sad. That this kind of happiness would never happen to her, and that no one would ever love her this easily. And poor baby, because she's felt neglected and abandoned emotionally her entire life. No one has emotionally invested in her, especially the people you think would. She didn't have her dad because he gave her up for her to have a quote-unquote better life. The witch could care less about being anyone's mother. Her in-laws suck, and at first she thought the boy she crushed on would never feel the same for her. But he does. And that boy, who's now her husband, embraces her because she's crying, asking, "How can I make you believe it? How can I ease your mind?" And she asks him not to hide anything from her, to show her everything. She can handle it. And he says, "Don't be so sure of that." And she asks, "Why not? You knew I was 406, yet you didn't abandon me. Let us show each other our worst and be even." Now, Paksun says, "Hongyi-ju, if something happens to me and the Paksun you've known disappears from this world, even if I throw away the title of the chairman's grandson and Paksun your son, just remember this. The only Paksun I want to leave behind in this world is the one that belongs to Hongyi-ju." God, that killed me. That legit got me, y'all. So good. And it didn't help that my song "See the Light" started playing through this, but this is a loaded scene that tells you so much. Not only was he hurt that she couldn't turn to him to ask whatever she wanted, but Hongyi-ju is quite upfront about her fears of him leaving. But with Paksun, he's scared of sharing anything of his family's secrets because he feels that his sins far outweigh hers. And these aren't necessarily his sins per se. Keeping on the secrets he's had to, even still from her, sure, but a lot of these burdens and secrets were passed on from his family to him. But what I love that despite the lie he's had to live, being a person who he wasn't, the one true, authentic thing about himself is loving her. That part isn't a lie. And like I said in my last recap, being Hongyi-ju's husband, the love of her life, her everything, means more to him than his name or whose son or grandson he is. That's why his father still trying to throw Hongyi-na at him won't work. Not only because Hongyi-na seems to want no part of it, but like I said before, Paksun would quit his family in a heartbeat. And honestly, if the kidnapper asked him to step away, stop pretending to be him or using his name, I seriously think Paksun would consider it if he could still be with Hongyi-ju. And sure, with all the things going on, I'm sure he also never wanted to be a part of this family anyway. But in hindsight, would he be okay with never knowing or loving Hongyi-ju? Without him becoming Paksun, he may never had crossed paths with Hongyi-ju. You know, fate is fate, especially in a lot of these dramas. If it was meant to be, they will meet. But with him being a part of this world, it brought her into his orbit. And I also believe he would have had a harder time surviving as Paksun without her. And all the soft spots of him might have been gone because of it. And I know like he was still very cold and callous up until that point. But we see the softer side of him now that he has the security of her love. We see that outward glow of him. The softness and the potential that he's always had. But he's had to toughen his shell because of the circumstances of him being this replacement kid. So he's had to toughen his shell in order for him to survive the childhood that he had, and he had a rough going of it. But with Hongyi-ju, she makes him feel and have human connections and emotions he probably would not have had otherwise. At least, I don't think so. And it also goes back to that scene back in episode 5, when there's a flashback scene of him, Hongyi-na, and little Hongyi-ju doing the math problems, and she's interpreting for what he says versus what he actually says, and he's a little bit harsher, but she softens him. That's what their relationship has always been. She is the softest part of him. And so now he's able to love her. I wouldn't necessarily say freely because they're both not free from the entrappings of the life that they have been put into. But at least that part is understood between the two of them. And I guess for right now, it is what matters. At least until we get to the end of the series. Next scene though, Hongyi-na is getting fussed at by Chairman Hung, wondering why she came back without telling him. Hongyi-na says, "When I said I couldn't marry him, I thought you forced me to. But you let me go so easily, so I was grateful yet surprised. Was it a part of your plan? Were you the one who sent me those papers? So what were on those papers that sent her running? A DNA test saying that Park Sr. is not the father of the Park son we know. So Hong-ina continues on to say, when I thought about it though, you didn't look surprised. It's almost as if you already knew. And then she muses that there was no reason for her father to send it anonymously, that he could have just told her all up front. So she questions, why was he okay with her running away? What was the contract he made with Chairman Park? Well, we get a flashback 3 years prior to Park Sr. reacting to the deal being changed from the first daughter to the second. The Parks reason that hundreds of wedding invitations have already gone out in Hong-ina's name. Like everyone and their grandmother knows that Park Sun is engaged to Hong-ina. And now Chairman Hung is suddenly wanting to send his second daughter down the aisle? And Park Sr. kind of laughs off how this is turning into a soap opera. And he asks Chairman Hung if he's lost his ever-loving mind since Hong-ina had ran off. And Park Sun's mom pipes up with, why would they take Hong Hee-ju as if she was on the same level as Park Sun? Park Sr. is bump that. Let's go and prepare a statement. Chairman Hung says, no one will know. Let's just fill the empty spot. You've done it already, referring to the kid switch out they did with their son. And Chairman Hung says that their two families have had a long-standing agreement. Chairman Park even knelt before Chairman Hung and made this promise, that he promised to grant Chairman Hung anything he wanted, whenever and whatever it may be. And this agreement, he lets the Parks read it, that if the confidentiality clause is upheld, Party B, meaning them, must accommodate any request made by Party A, whenever, wherever. And it's stamped with Chairman Park's dragon ring, so it's the real deal. And most importantly, it's binding. So Hong-ina tells that she heard it all from the witch, who's all ears and loose-tongued. But she was sure he wouldn't just tell her, so she thought about it. The car accident when she was young. And then after that, Chairman Hung was pissed off for a long time after that accident, that he even got the police and prosecutors to investigate and dig everything up. And that it seemed like he was going to make a culprit even if there wasn't one. And yet, he stopped suddenly one day. And so she's wondering, why, or rather who, made you stop? We get another flashback really briefly. Chairman Hung, who has a rifle pointed straight at Chairman Park, who's kneeling down in the rain, looks like for mercy. Nothing is said, but now we know that that agreement was signed under threats. But Chairman Hung asks not to bring up the past. And he's like, do you know what you should be focusing on now? Did you hear that Park Sun is being threatened? The culprit knows everything about Hee-ju. And since they know that means that they know what happened to you, Park Sun, and Hee-ju. And so with that, I guess I'm in the maze of speculation of what all this means. I had originally assumed that Park Sun had switched out the brides all on his own and at his own will. Even Hong-ina verified that he had asked deliberately to marry Hong Hee-ju in episode 6. So when it comes to the flashback scene, it seems a little weird to me time frame wise of when the Parks and Chairman Hung discussed this. Was it the same night as the end of episode 2 exchange or days leading up to this? Like when did they duke it out? Also, did Park Sun come to Chairman Hung about exchanging them before this discussion happened? I don't know, and we don't get that clarified at the end of this episode, and honestly, not sure if it will ever be explained again, but we'll see. So the next scene, the Parks are putting on a show in front of cameras for the interview they were split on canceling, and they're holding hands and smiling. You know, really selling the fact that their marriage is awesome. Nayuri is interviewing them, asking them on what's their secret to maintain such a happy marriage. Park Sr. is like, it's nothing special. We just fill out each other with what we lack and share what we have in excess. While doing that, we've become one. Whoa, what a great line. A lie, but a great line. Nayuri says that in such a harmonious home, I hear there's been some troubling and worrying issues lately. It's about your son, spokesperson Park Sun. Park Senior was about to address that, but Miss Ma'am charges in with a couple quotes saying, the threats and acts of terror were crimes of vengeance. The victim provided the reason for the threats. I hear there are various rumors. Nayuri is like, yes, but some insist that isn't the case and urge caution against reckless speculation. Park Sun's mom apologizes for causing concern to their supporters and the public who have trusted and watched over them, but they promise to resolve this matter swiftly. And to her son, Park Sun, who must be suffering more than anyone, and as his mother, she wishes to say something. She gathers her courage to say, "Do you remember what I always said to you?" And during this time, it flashes back to when she was younger and she locked her homicidal child up in the bedroom in the villa. And we see her say that she's not locking him up, she's protecting him. What she's currently saying through these cameras is that she will still protect him. The thing about it is, when she was saying she was going to address her son, I knew this message wasn't for our bae. This was for her original son. The thing about this is that she never truly saw our current Park Sun as her child. What she said in that meeting kind of set me off already, because how she referred to Park Sun was her husband's son. Not mine, not ours, but his. Because as far as she knows, only one Park Sun exists, and it's her true son, not this counterfeit they raised. But I think personally her protection will come with a price, and I honestly think she's gonna fold. Whatever the kidnapper is fighting to regain, she may buckle to help him get it. And it doesn't really bode well for our lovebirds, does it? Well, one of them, Hong Yi-ju, is back at work with the other interpreters. She apologizes for the worry she caused and that she'll work really hard. They tell her not to worry and wonders how she's feeling. She says, okay, but now that she's back at work, they've prepared a gift for her. She'll be the interpreter for the spokesperson's speech at this year's Environmental Climate Day event. But they were worried it might be too much since Hong Yi-ju just got back, but her face says otherwise, and she says, just leave it to me and I'll do my best to prepare. So, during this time, Park Sun is delivering a speech about a visit to France that will help strengthen the trust and friendship between the two nations and possibly a cooperative partnership. So after his spiel, Kang Young-woo asks if anyone has any questions, which majority of them do. And Kang Young-woo is like, such enthusiasm. However, we're only taking questions related to today's issues. And those hands fall. Park Sun turns off his microphone so he can speak candidly. He says, how about back briefing? He's open to any question on any topic, and those hands shoot right back up. One reporter asks, what did the blackmailer demand and why didn't we report it after the first threat? Park Sun is like, next question. Next reporter. And he's quoting what was on one of the bereavement wreaths. I know what you did, Park Sun. What do you think this means? And Park Sun is like, yes, any more questions? His reporter friend holds his hand up, but Park Sun does a fake out and gives the floor to someone else. And the next reporter asks, you firmly said it was not political terrorism. How are you so sure? Park Sun says, it seems you're all being careful around me. Feel free to ask bolder questions, because let's be honest, you're all curious about one thing. You've dug into me and never found any dirt. So what could be Park Sun's deadly weakness? A woman? Partly, yes. Gambling? Drugs? His friend thinks he has lost his marbles. Park Sun says, I'm going to show you something, and I want you all to make use of your informative and investigation skills to solve this quiz. Now he plays the video that he saw back at the villa and what the kidnapper sent to Hong Yi-ju with the scrolling text about the child abduction case. So after it's done, he says, the video I just showed you is what I received from the blackmailer just yesterday. But you can't tell what it's about, can you? What does he want? What's he threatening me with? It's the same for me. So I need your help. The deal? The one who figures it out will get an exclusive interview with Park Sun. So we go back to the Korean barbecue place that the staff at the presidential office likes to go and frequent. But this time, Hong Yi-ju has brought her previous colleagues from the agency she had worked at. And they are admonishing her for not only grilling, but paying too. But she tells her peeps that, hey, it's time to eat up. And her old boss is getting so misty-eyed because she is so proud of how far she's come. And she mentions how it feels just like yesterday you were practicing sign language with those tiny delicate hands fumbling this way and that. But now you're an interpreter for the presidential office treating us to lunch. Hong Yi-ju says that she wanted to come here with her old work crew, especially her boss. And her boss is like, by the way, Hong Yi-ju, you've gotten much prettier. It seems that everyone else has noticed this too. Perhaps because she's no longer depressed about her marriage and wanting out of it. But she is definitely more radiant. Wait, did she get work done? Fillers? Lasers? But the boss is just kidding. She figures that her getting this job at the presidential office, you get to work next to the spokesperson, the persons whose videos she studied so much. If they only knew. But her former boss also comments on how the atmosphere at the presidential office has been very chaotic lately. Is the spokesperson okay? And another colleague wants to know if the threats were for real, and not to mention that accident that happened during the company retreat. Hong Hee-ju doesn't answer. And I'm pretty sure Park Sun probably wanted everything outside the presidential office to be like low-key. No one else is supposed to know or be privy to nothing that he doesn't vet. And the boss picks up on her silence, dismissing it by how could Hong Hee-ju know any of this? She's just an interpreter. So Kang Young-woo is in the office, and he is kind of like miffed about the spokesperson being all high maintenance all of a sudden. And he's like, why does he keep causing trouble without consulting us? And people apparently have already been calling in to resolve this little riddle that he put out into the universe. And so now he picks up a call, but the call is from the fish store manager, saying that there's something he needs to tell Park Sun. So Hong Hee-ju heads back to work, and when she gets to the elevator, she immediately sees that her husband's already on there, standing towards the back. She gets on and he's staring at her. He can't even hide it. When he gets to the second floor, people get off and then new people get on, which sends her closer to Park Sun. When one person steps closer to her, Park Sun grabs her gently to bring her back close to him. And he asks her if she had lunch. In sign language. Oh, he's been practicing. And she says she did. What about him? He also says that he just had lunch too. And I also love how he's looking around like he's communicating to her in secret code, because now they can communicate without a lot of people understanding what they're saying, especially, intimate things about home and love and affection. But she compliments him on his improved sign language. And I'm like, with all that's gone on with this man's life, how has he had time to even practice? He does say that he has been practicing hard. But when it's her turn to get off, he signs to her that he'll see her at home and he won't be late. But tonight he may be, when he sees the message that Kang Young-woo has for him. And he tells him that he received a call a few moments ago. So he gets to the office and he shuts the blinds on a standing Park Do-jae, which is the reverse of what happened in episode 4. So Kang Young-woo passes it along on a sticky note which says, he's alive. And Park Sun's like, is this all of it? Kang Young-woo is like, well, yeah, he hung up after saying this. But Kang Young-woo did do his due diligence and he looked up the number and a business came up. But at said business, at this current time, the owner is packing to get the heck out of there, but he receives a visit. We don't know, we just see a shadow across the floor, but we do see some white shoes. And the way the hair falls, it denotes it could be either the kidnapper, Park Do-jae, or even Ji Sang-woo, who we saw briefly a few minutes earlier driving up to a destination. We have no idea where he's going. But it also could be someone else we are not fully aware of yet. So keeping the possibility of it being possibly somebody else. But y'all, I thought that this fish store guy was possibly someone who dealt in business with the kidnapper. Like the kidnapper bought his fishing supplies and everything from him. No. The tie is that young Park Sun knew this fishing guy, went fishing with him, ate with him, and I'm sure he ate whatever he wanted with him too. But from the flashback that we're being shown, it looks like also what I was wrong about is that Park Sun didn't get linked up with the Parks from the orphanage, but he was taken from the fish store guy who might be his father, his grandfather, or his uncle. How and why? Well, one night, young Park Sun hears a splash of water while he's asleep on a floating houseboat, and someone is screaming for help. What he witnesses is Chairman Park in a yellow boat drowning a child in the water. The fish store guy covers young Park Sun's eyes, saying how he told him not to come out. So I assume with this discovery, Park Sun's relative had to make a deal to give him up to be raised as Park Sun and keep this secret on lockdown. So as our grown Park Sun arrives at his destination, Hong Hee-ju is waiting for him to come home. She texts him, wondering if he's going to be late, but after that, she hears the doorbell. It's Hong-ina, and she eventually serves tea to her. Hong-ina comments on how it feels strange that this place was supposed to be her newlywed house. Hongyi refuses to talk that over with her, and she's writing out on her phone. It's like, why did you come back? And she starts writing out also, if you're trying to reclaim what's yours, and that's also an echo of what her mother told her to do, like to swat her sister away. And Hongyi is like, maybe what you actually should ask is why I left in the first place. Father told me that Pak Sun's blackmailer knows everything about you and this marriage, that you should also know why I refused it. The reason why you had to marry him in my place. And she shows Hongyi the paternity test while we see Pak Sun seeing the fish store filled with smoke, dashing towards it. The flames are starting to catch on, and he sees his relative, the fish store guy, lying on the floor. And so Pak Sun is trying to get him to wake up, and when he can't, he manages to put his arm over his shoulder so he can get him towards the exit. But as soon as he was trying to do that, a wall socket starts sparking until it explodes with flames behind them, and it sends them to the ground. So when Hongyi puts down the paper, because it's the DNA test saying that Pak Sun is not related to Pak Sr., Hongyi asks her if she already knew, and Hongyi is very calm and she shakes her head no. Hongyi is like, it doesn't matter to you? And the thing about it is yes, it would have been better if Pak Sun had told Hongyi outright, but luckily Pak Sun already gave her the heads up that this wouldn't be the case earlier in the episode. Coded words, but clear now that she has the paper, the proof of what he meant. And as the fire blows the windows out of the shop, and as Pak Sun and his family member lie motionless on the floor, do they escape? Well, not in this episode, but we get a little scene to assuage us. Now, I didn't discuss this scene until now because some of it took place during the episode proper, but I kind of wanted to tell all of it at this tail end because it was a more fleshed out, complete scene altogether. So, at the office, the sign language team gets a notification that pictures have been posted from the company retreat. I personally wouldn't know how I would feel looking at happy pictures prior to a major accident, especially one that affected my life. But I think it's interesting also that we got bookends of that in this episode. We get the childhood picture at the beginning of the episode showing Hongyi with her siblings at the amusement park before the fateful crash. And now we also get the company's field day at the retreat prior to Hongyi being pushed off the overlook. So amongst these pictures though is one Kang Young-woo took of our winners of the competition, and then there's other pictures of her husband staring at her too. I mean, blatantly staring at her and not hiding his love and respect for her in the least. Of all the people who have been telling her to keep their relationship under wraps, he didn't do a good job on that. And there's picture after picture after picture of them mostly together and him staring at her like she's the most precious thing in his world. I think that's also what Kang Young-woo had clocked. It's like, you're looking at her like hardcore, so this has to be your wife. Even still, if he knew, he should not have interrupted him on his day off. I'm still mad about that. Anyway, from seeing all these pictures and seeing the proof of his love, she gets all teary-eyed now, seeing how clearly he was in love with her before she was even aware of it, and especially before she knew what would eventually come that day of her being pushed off that cliff. But that incident and that day brought her closer to happiness with her husband, and as she had said, something she never thought would ever be possible. And seeing those pictures solidified her love and affection for her husband against the proof her sister brought. Because despite everything and the secrets he keeps, his words, his gaze, his heart are all for her. And with that, it's the end of episode 8. So, what a great episode with more gaps being filled in, but still a lot more unanswered questions and new mysteries. I discussed a lot along the way about what I think Pak Sun's mom will do, what the original Pak Sun will try and do, and if our Pak Sun will survive. First off, he will, but it's a question of who might have gotten him and his relative out, because I don't think he will be able to wake up on his own. My money is on Ji Sang-woo. I even have a feeling that he might have showed up initially with the white shoes, but didn't necessarily attack Pak Sun's relative. And he probably came back after thinking about something further, or maybe he even saw Pak Sun's car driving up as he was leaving and decided to follow. Then he sees the store being on fire, and then he takes action and saves the both of them. That's just my feeling and my thoughts on what will possibly happen or how they got out of the store, but we'll see that definitely in the next episode. I know in the last episode I speculated about the missing boys and the lake. Originally, I thought it was going to be a trial by error on who would be the replacement son. This kid was not fit to do it, and so the chairman ended them. But I think what threw me off was that these boys were adopted before they went missing. So I think a lot of them who saw what they weren't meant to see at that villa, which was the crazy kid, the chairman came and took care of them personally. So I think the boy being drowned at the lake that we and young Park's son does see might have been Chairman Park's MO. And so I think that's just what happened to most of those boys. And to think, if Ji Sang-woo was discovered at that house, he might have met the same fate if this is what happened to those other boys. Also, I think the boy we saw drowning might have been the kidnapper as a little boy. Even when he was being dunked underwater, he turned and he saw Park-sun. So maybe that's what he immediately thought, like, you were complacent in my offing, and so he blames him for everything. It also makes sense if it is him, because he came at Park-sun with those accusatory messages on the projection screen and on the bereavement wreaths, accusing him about being an offer of people. And I'm like, dude, he was a kid. He had zero say, and if he had blabbed it out to anyone, it would have been the end of him and his relative. All the people he should have gone after was his parents and his grandfather. But it makes me wonder, because we also have not seen the chairman, like Chairman Park, at all. We've just seen pictures of him and we've seen flashbacks. So it makes me wonder, is this dude even still alive? Did the kidnapper do him in for revenge? I don't know, that's yet to be seen, but it's almost like, we only have a handful of episodes left. There's not been any indication that Chairman Park is alive at all. Plus, I think it's also interesting that Chairman Park had mentioned that he doesn't want one rusty spoon in his house, and he's willing to off anyone who gets in his way. And yet, I think the homegrown homicidal tendencies didn't fall far from the tree, especially genetically. His grandson picked up exactly what Chairman Park handed down. And wait, did Chairman Park orchestrate the incident with Hong Yi-ju and her siblings when they were kids? Maybe Chairman Hong was digging into the truth regarding those missing boys, and Chairman Park forced him to stand down by trying to take out his children. That's so messed up. But we already know that Chairman Park will stop at nothing to keep his image pristine, even while he's hiding his dirty, bloody hands behind his back. And I know I try to do a theme for each of the later episodes I've covered. I think this one should be what belongs, and I'll explain by what I mean by that. This could be a reference in a good, bad, or indifferent kind of way, but as the story shifts the closer we get to its conclusion, a lot of things have settled into their place, where they belong, where they should have been all this time if fate or circumstances hadn't stepped in, or where our characters wish they would have been all along. Case in point, young Park-sun originally belonged with the fish store guy, the crazy kidnapper pledging to get back his original life that belongs to him away from our bae. Park-sun's mother showing that her love only really belongs to her true son, and that she may do almost anything to keep him protected. Chairman Park believing all rusty spoons belong buried in that lake. Park Sr. trying a power trip by indicating that Hong Yi-na belongs married to his son. Hong Yi-ju wanting all their past sins to belong in the past and for them to start anew on a fresh foundation without any secrets between her and Park-sun. Ji Sang-woo wanting Hong Yi-ju to belong with him but getting blocked by Park-sun. All because we know the ultimate reason why. Because Park-sun will forever belong to Hong Yi-ju. That's what he wishes, and we get the echoes of that at the end of the episode while him and his relative are stuck in the burning store. So in episode 9, I believe that Park-sun will be rescued for sure. If his relative makes it, that's yet to be seen. His mother might try and do some stuff for her original son that will go over well. No, not really. I know we'll have more couple moments, and we may even have Hong Yi-ju tell him she loves him too. Because now it's time for her to take care of him now that he has to recover from his ordeal. Now it'll be a matter of whether or not she will reveal that she already knows about his paternity, or she might just wait until he's ready to tell her. But I think it'll be nice if Hong Yi-ju mentions what Hong Yi-na came to her with, and maybe that might open some of the floodgates about him and his previous life to her, but we'll see. And goodness, there were so many great moments in this episode. I have to say that my favorite part has to be the Overlook Park, where our couple stops at and we get that teary-eyed frankness that comes out of them. and them wanting to be candid and real. And seriously, whoever has been writing these romantic lines for Pak Sun, brava. There seems to be a line or several of them from every episode that has me fawning over here. And I'm just in love with how well written and poetic they are. Beautiful. And seriously, I need them like on a tote bag, a shirt, or something. So yeah, that concludes my recap for episode 8. I'm so sorry for a long one, but there's just so much in this episode to uncover, and we still have 4 more episodes to go. So please like and subscribe. Stay a while. Let me know what your impressions have been up to this point. I've given you mine, but hey, it's just a thought.